And for more on the Iran-U.S. talks, we're joined by Alan Eyre. He was the only U.S. career diplomat to be a core member of the nuclear negotiating team for the Iran nuclear deal signed in 2015. He's currently a distinguished diplomatic fellow with the Middle East Institute think tank. First up, great having you. Second, how far apart are Iran and the U.S. in terms of a possible agreement now?
Well, thanks for having me, Diego. It's hard to tell because obviously each side is not sharing with the media, but it does seem to be the case, as your correspondent said, that there's a key difference on the main issue, which is the nuclear issue, where Iran wants to preserve its ability to enrich uranium on Iranian soil, and the U.S. is saying there can be no enrichment of uranium on Iranian soil. So those two red lines have been in place since the June war of last year. And until there's movement from either side toward the other on this key issue, there's not going to be a negotiated solution.
And Alan, there's a 10 to 15-day deadline right now, and there's a significant mobilization of assets towards the region, right? How do you expect the Iranians to negotiate in this context?
Well, it's not just the massive military buildup the U.S. has done in the region that makes it hard to negotiate. It's also the absolute lack of trust on either side toward the other. The U.S. doubts that Iran will hold to any deal it makes. And for Iran's part, it thinks that the U.S. and Israel are trying to topple the regime, or at least collapse it, so it won't be a threat. So given that, there's a lot of miscommunication going on and there's a lot of miscalculation going on. Finally, the pace of negotiations is glacially slow. And that's another barrier to reaching a negotiated solution.
I see. At the same time, something you just addressed, which is the U.S. demand for zero enrichment. Do you believe that from an Iranian point of view is even an issue that can be discussed?
Well, anything could be discussed, but that's a hard red line for Iran. Iran sees caving in and capitulating on that issue as just inviting more pressure and inviting more aggression from the United States. If they thought that if they gave away what they see as their right to enrich, aggression would stop, it's theoretically possible, perhaps, that they would agree. But they see it as a red line that if they go beyond that, it will just invite further U.S. aggression.
I see. And if strikes do happen, these tend to happen on Saturdays, and there are significant assets in the region. What's the first thing Americans should expect? Retaliation on bases, an oil shock, a wider regional war? What do you think Tehran is thinking about right now?
Well, this is all happening against the backdrop of Iran having lost much of its strategic deterrence over the last year or so. So what has happened in the lead up to where we are now is that Iran has made it quite clear that if there's any type of U.S. military attack, its response will not be measured or proportionate. It will be disproportionate because they feel that's the only way they can reestablish some measure of deterrence. So if there's any U.S. or U.S.-Israeli strike at Iran, I expect a substantial Iranian counterattack using missiles, drones, rockets, either on U.S. bases in the region, on Israel, on U.S. forces in the region, or on U.S. allies in the region.
Alan Eyre, thank you for your time and insights.